The UK government has recently secretly supplied Ukraine with an additional batch of Storm Shadow cruise missiles. This was reported by Bloomberg, citing its own sources. The exact number of missiles delivered has not been disclosed. The article states that the missile delivery was carried out to ensure Ukraine has sufficient stockpiles ahead of the winter months, during which, according to the UK, the Kremlin may intensify attacks on Ukrainian civilians. Bloomberg emphasizes that the UK and its allies are trying to show Vladimir Putin that Western support for Ukraine will surpass the Russian economy's ability to sustain its military efforts. Storm Shadows are high-precision, air-launched guided missiles with a range of over 250 kilometers. Ukrainian forces first used British long-range weapons against military targets on Russian territory in November of last year. In October of this year, the General Staff of Ukraine announced that a strike had been carried out. The Bryansk chemical plant was hit using long-range Storm Shadow missiles, which managed to penetrate the Russian air defense system.
On October 21st, 2025, the air forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in coordination with the ground forces, naval forces, and other components of Ukraine's defense forces, struck the Bryansk chemical plant.
The agency also shared that the Bryansk chemical plant is an important part of the military-industrial complex of the aggressor country. Recently, the Wall Street Journal reported that the US administration has lifted a key restriction on Ukraine's use of certain missiles. These are long-range missiles provided by Western allies, which has allowed Kiev to expand attacks on targets inside Russia. They were also awaiting approval from President Donald Trump to provide Ukraine with long-range AGAVK missiles. But he himself said that he is not considering this possibility for now. Political scientist and military expert from the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Kirilo Sazonov, gave his assessment of the Storm Shadow.
These are really awesome missiles, really great. And honestly, when we talk about Tomahawks, it's nothing, guys. Believe me, the British Storm missiles are fantastic. Especially now when there are no problems with the guidance system that we are receiving, the coordinates for strikes are provided by the United States of America. And this will continue because Russia's attempt playing games with Trump ended very badly.
Earlier, Anatoly Krapchinsky, deputy general director of a company producing electronic warfare equipment and an aviation expert, stated to the Ukrainian Defense Forces, ATACMS and Storm Shadow missiles are needed more than the American Tomahawks. According to military observer Denis Popovich, with the help of Storm Shadow missiles, the Ukrainian armed forces will be able to keep Crimea and the Kerch Bridge under full fire control. Defense Express military expert Valery Ryabik reported that, according to preliminary calculations, about 10 such missiles could disrupt Russian communications across the bridge over the Kerch Strait. He noted that this is a very precise missile which uses a terrain contour matching system for navigation. And in the final stage, the Storm Shadow jettisons the nose cone from its warhead and homes in on the target using an electro-optical guidance system.
Oh, I'm really so scared. I am literally trembling.
Residents of Saratov and Engels heard the sounds of sirens and explosions on the night of November 3rd. In the Saratov region, the Saratov oil refinery once again came under attack. The attack was confirmed by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. As the agency writes,
on the night of November 3rd, units of the Ukrainian Defense Forces struck the Saratov oil refinery in the Saratov region of the Russian Federation.
The General Staff notes that the Saratov oil refinery is one of the oldest oil processing enterprises in Russia. It is involved in meeting the needs of the armed forces of the aggressor country. According to the Telegram channel Astra, this is at least the 6th attack on the plant since the beginning of this year. Prior to this, the refinery was attacked on October 16th. A day earlier, on the night of November 2nd, drones attacked the Russian port of Tuapse in the Krasnodar region. The operational headquarters of the Krasnodar region reported that, as a result of the attack, a tanker and an oil terminal were damaged. Satellite images showing the aftermath of the recent attack have appeared online. It is reported that at least 2 hits struck the pipeline of Transneft's oil terminal. Damage to an oil tanker has also been recorded. The port of Tuapse is one of the key hubs for the export of Russian oil and petroleum products. Recently, drones have been attacking Russia's oil refineries, energy facilities, and military enterprises almost every day. This is increasingly depleting the economy of the aggressor country, which is already barely holding on. As noted by Ivan Us, an expert from the United Ukraine Analytical Center on the Freedom Channel, a fuel shortage has already hit several Russian regions, and sooner or later it will reach its peak.
So far, Moscow itself has not faced a major gasoline crisis. But everywhere else, whether west, east, north, or south of Moscow, problems are already starting to arise. And these problems will only get worse over time because the strikes are ongoing, persistent, and unremitting.
Russians may end up not only without fuel, but also without electricity. Drones are striking more and more thermal power plants in Russian regions. As journalist Michael Naki reports, residents of the aggressor country are facing the threat of a blackout. In particular, this warning was issued by the commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Madar Brody.
The Ukrainian armed forces have already carried out numerous strikes on power stations and substations. Electricity and heating are periodically cut off in many cities across Russia and in the occupied territories.
Naki reminds us that Ukraine is attacking Russia's energy facilities in response to Russian terror against Ukrainian energy infrastructure. The journalist believes that very soon this campaign will reach a new level, with Flamingo missiles being used almost daily. And then Russians will surely feel the consequences of the war they started. Meanwhile, in Russia's Belgorod, local residents have already started stealing generators that were meant to protect against blackouts. This was stated by the governor of Belgorod region, Vyacheslav Gladkov, who called the situation a catastrophically big problem.
The government of the Russian Federation is looking for those to blame for the breakdown of negotiations between dictator Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump in Budapest. The Kremlin placed the blame for this on the Russian Foreign Ministry, since the memorandum with its unrealistic and excessive demands, which sounded like an ultimatum, caused Trump's anger and the subsequent cancellation of the meeting. Lavrov has been named the main culprit. It was he whom the Western press called the main factor in the cooling of relations with the US. Several media outlets report that Lavrov came to the meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio unprepared, refused to engage in discussion, and took an overly hardline stance on Ukraine, trying to follow the Kremlin's instructions to the letter. According to the Telegram channel Nexta, insiders say that Lavrov received a severe reprimand from Putin. The head of the Russian Foreign Ministry was almost accused of sabotage, since under no circumstances was he supposed to disrupt the summit. Amid the scandals, Kirill Dmitriev flew to the US in an attempt to ease attention. Journalist Rostislav Mirzagilov shared insider information from the Kremlin about Lavrov's fate. Putin is seriously considering the option of dismissing the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation as soon as the intensity of Russia's aggressive actions against Ukraine decreases.
When he gets removed, Putin will start looking for someone to blame. That's typical for him. So, accordingly, Lavrov is the perfect scapegoat. He has said a lot of nasty things. He is cursed at the Russian Federation's international partners.
On October 16th, US President Donald Trump announced that he intended to hold a meeting with Putin in Hungary. He did not announce the date of the summit, but noted that talks between the foreign ministers were planned beforehand. Already on October 22nd, Trump stated that he had canceled the summit with Putin. On the same day, the US Treasury Department imposed sanctions against Russian oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil. Soon after, Trump stated that he would not meet with Putin or waste his time until there was an understanding about reaching a peace agreement between Ukraine and the Russian Federation.
The situation in the Pokrovsk direction of the Donetsk region remains tense. According to the latest data from Deep State, the enemy has advanced near Pokrovsk and close to Volnovo. According to reports from the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, as of 8 o'clock in the morning on November 3rd, Ukrainian forces have repelled 68 assault actions by the aggressor in the Pokrovsk direction. As stated by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in his evening address on November 2nd, there have been results in eliminating Russian occupiers in the Pokrovsk direction.
The front. There were reports from the military today. First and foremost, attention is on the Pokrovsk direction. There are results in eliminating the occupier. I would especially like to mention the units of the 79th Separate Air Assault Brigade.
Zelensky also thanked the Ukrainian military for their effective and active actions both in the Pokrovsk area and in Kupiansk. Earlier, Bild analyst Julian Robka reported that Russian forces have entrenched themselves in almost all areas of Pokrovsk. According to him, more than 1,000 Ukrainian soldiers are holding the defense within the city. The enemy forces outnumber the Ukrainian troops by 10 times and possess significantly greater firepower. At the same time, as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated on November 1st, there is no encirclement or blockade of the city. On his Telegram channel, he reported,
In the Pokrovsk-Mirnohrad agglomeration, our soldiers have to withstand the pressure of an enemy group numbering in the thousands, which continues to attempt to infiltrate residential areas and cut off our supply routes. However, there is no encirclement or blockade of the cities. We are doing everything possible to maintain logistics.
Syrsky noted that a comprehensive operation to destroy and drive out enemy forces from Pokrovsk is ongoing. According to him, the enemy in Pokrovsk is paying the highest price for its attempts to carry out the Kremlin dictator's order to occupy the Ukrainian Donbas. As previously stated by Ukrainian Armed Forces officer Serhiy Tchikotsky on the air of Kyiv 24, the Russian occupiers who entered Pokrovsk are mostly hiding. According to him, they are waiting for reinforcements and assistance. According to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, as of November 3rd, Ukrainian troops repelled 12 enemy attacks in the areas of the settlements of Vovchansk, Vovchansky Khutori, Tyke, and Otradne in the southern Slobozhansky direction. In the Kupiansk direction, on November 2nd, there were 13 attacks by the invaders, all of which were repelled by Ukrainian soldiers. In the Lyman direction, the enemy attacked 7 times, attempting to break through the defenses in the areas of the settlements of Hrikivka, Kolodets, Zarekne, and towards the settlement of Korovi Yar. In the Kostiantynivka direction, the enemy carried out 18 attacks. In the Oleksandrivka direction, the enemy launched 29 attacks on November 2nd. The remaining sectors of the front remain less tense. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the occupiers' losses have amounted to more than 1,144,000 people.